Hello, hello, and welcome back to yet another NFL video. Today, man, we got the mid-season all-pro teams for the offense. If this was offense and defense, this would be 2 hours long. So let's get right into it, man. First of all, thank y'all for watching, and I'll explain it as we pretty much get into it here. So what I've done is that I have basically taken into account everything I've seen throughout the first however many weeks it's been, 10, 11. I think everybody's played at least like what the Seahawks are what they're 4-5, so I think everybody's played at least like 9 games, right? So we're not exactly halfway through the season. We're a little bit past halfway through, but I feel like we pretty much know like who all the top for the most part. Like I don't think many things are gonna change past this point. I mean, I'll end up making my personal end of all pro teams, but yeah, this is just basically what I thought players have been up to this point on the offensive side of the ball. And it's important to keep in mind that this pretty much is just going strictly off statistics. Like so, for example, if you're a receiver who has been just a terrible quarterback, and this other guy who may not be more talented than you has a better quarterback and he's putting up better numbers, then I'm going to have you higher. Pro is it's not necessarily who's better, who's more talented. It's about who like just based off production or like who produced the most for that particular season. So let's get right into it, man. For quarterbacks, I think it's pretty easy here. I think Lamar Jackson is by the best player in football this year, the best quarterback, the best player. At this point, I think he probably has a pretty good case to be the unanimous MVP. You talk about the league in passing touchdowns, total yards, and passer rating. And by the way, Lamar Jackson's passer rating is far by far the high. Nobody else is even close. Only thrown 2 interceptions. Obviously, we know what the guy can do with his legs. It's producing, even though I'm really not going to take record into account for the quarterbacks. But like, man, Lamar Jackson incredible this year, and maybe even the best year of his career. I have not like compared this to like his original unit, but bro, it has to be at least pretty close to that because he has been outstanding. Second team. By the way, I'm doing first, second, and third team for the quarterbacks. I'm always going to do three. Joe Burrow here. He, I think, by the last several games, he's been absolutely on fucking fire. Leads the league in passing yards, top passing touchdowns. The second highest passer rating, I believe, showing it. But at a certain point, right, wins are not an individual stat. It can help, like certain like for the MVP race and stuff like that, it matters. But just for the All Pro teams, I'm looking strictly at who's been the best player. And Joe Burrow, it's been undeniable. Like just statistically, he has been blowing people out of the water. Like so, Joe Burrow and Lamar definitely, I think, have been the two most impressive QBs statistically. And for third team, this was very difficult. I was thinking of several guys. I was thinking about Josh Allen, not really Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, he just doesn't have like he doesn't even have like 10 passing touchdowns yet. I don't think so. He's been very good. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't really in consideration for the All Pro list. It was really between Baker and Josh Allen. And Baker, I just went with him because he has more yards, more touchdowns. Obviously tied for the most passing touchdowns. The turnovers are a little concerning. He does have 16 total turnovers, but it's tough. It's really tough for Baker, man, because when you look at how good he was doing, he really was in the MVP conversations until Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got hurt. So that's not really taking into consideration here. If you put Josh Allen over Baker Mayfield, I wouldn't be mad at you. But for me personally, I think Baker has just been a little bit better up to this point. For the running backs here, I decided to do two running backs per team because you got a lot of teams now that have two really good running backs. So I figured rather than only doing three running, I'd give guys a little bit more love. So first team, obviously, let me start off with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's been the best running back in football this year, not debatable. Derrick Henry is arguably having the best year of his career, a career which, by the way, includes a 2,000-yard season. Derrick Henry on the Ravens has been absolutely everything that they could have hoped for and then some. Leads the league in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, yards per carry, total yards from scrimmage, and total touchdowns. It's insane. Derrick Henry is the best back in football, bar none. He's been incredible. I also decided to put Saquon Barkley on the first team. He's pretty much like far and away second in most of these categories. The amount of yards, yards per carry, nearly 6 a game. He also does more out of the like as a receiving threat than Derrick Henry. So he is, about 1,150 total yards, 8 touchdowns. He has been amazing as well for the Eagles. So both of the first team running backs, guys who left their previous teams in the offseason, found new homes and are excelling like massively in their new destinations. Second team, I decided to put Jahmyr Gibbs on here. This he has way just compare his touches and his carries to everybody else on this list. He has like at least 50 less than everybody else, but in terms of touches, but he has been so good, so amazing in his limited samples that I had to put him on the second team because it's like if it's just so easy to know that if he got the same amount of touches as everybody else, he would easily be up here. And like just comparing him to a guy like Bijan, for example, he has touchdowns, he has the same amount of fumbles. They both have 0 fumbles. You can obviously make the case that Bijan, could be like above Jahmyr Gibbs on the second team. Um, I probably would make that case as well, actually. If you look at the yards per carry, you look at like just the yard per touch, really, it's like I don't know. They're both great. You could switch them if you want, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs has been so spectacular in his limited action. And then you got Alvin Kamara as well. He leads all running backs in catches, touches, the most receiving yards. Obviously, he's a dual threat guy. Over 1,100 yards from scrimmage on the year already. Alvin Kamara really he's been not struggling the last couple of years, but this is his best season in a long time. And when he's on, it's like pretty obvious he is one of the best running backs in football. Already talked about Bijan a little bit. I like what he's doing in Atlanta. Over 1,000 yards from scrimmage already on the year. And then Kyron Williams leads pretty much everybody in touchdowns besides Derrick Henry. So a little bit too many fumbles from Kyron Williams. That's the only really knock on him. But he's been doing a lot more as a receiving threat here. So 800 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think that's good enough to be on the third team. Some other guys I was considering was guys like James Conner, James Cook, um, Jordan Mason, the guy from the Niners. But I'm very confident with these 6 guys that I went with. Next up, let's talk about the receivers. I decided to put 3 receivers per team on here. I feel like that's pretty fair. A lot of teams have 3, receivers out there the majority of the time. Number one, not even close, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is on pace to be a Triple Crown winner. The first one, I believe, since Cooper Kupp in 2020 or 2021. He has been spectacular. I have him in fantasy, so I love that. Already 10 touchdowns, leads the league. Almost at 1,000 yards. Like it's only been like 10 games. And how many games actually? Because Joe Burrow, yeah, 10 games right here. He's pretty much averaging 100 yards and a touchdown a game, 66 catches, nearly 15 yards per reception, also, which is wild. Yeah, Jamar Chase has been incredible. Justin Jefferson as well. He has not slowed down, even though there's been a quarterback change for him. Over 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, well over 15 yards per catch. Justin Jefferson, I mean, it's kind of, as to be expected. Like, if he's healthy, it does not matter who's throwing to him. Justin Jefferson is proven that he is if not the best, one of the best receivers in football. And also Terry McLaurin, shout out to Terry McLaurin, man. Not like not been getting a lot of like attention and hype these last couple of years. A really underrated player, but now that he finally has a quarterback, even though he's a rookie quarterback, look at what he's doing in year one with Jaden Daniels. Over 700 yards on the year, 6 touchdowns, 15 yards per catch. That's the number you really look for. Like he is, I'm not sure if it's going to be a career year for him. He might be a little bit over like 1,200, 1,300 yards like on the season. But man, Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels is looking like a dangerous duo for a long time moving forward. Second team here, I decided to put Garrett Wilson on the Jets. I think he leads the whole league in fucking targets. 100 targets is ridiculous. The yards per catch is not that high. But listen, he like even before or even after they got Devontae Adams, he still draws the other team's best corner the majority of the time. Like everybody knows he's the focal point of that offense, and he's still producing at a very high clip, over 700 yards, 5 touchdowns as well. Jaden Reed, I decided to put him on here. He contributes a lot in the run game, a lot more than most receivers there. So 730 total yards, 4 total touchdowns, over 17 yards per reception. He has emerged, I think, as the best overall player on that Packers offense. He's been a really good find for them. And then CeeDee Lamb. you know, not he has not done as good in these recent weeks, obviously, with Dak getting hurt and then not Dak not being there. His numbers will probably continue to dip as the season goes on. But up to this point, a little bit over 700 yards, for receiving touchdowns. The yards per catch is not that high. It's just the Cowboys as a whole have been so disappointing. It's not really a knock on CD. It's just that his numbers obviously will not be that impressive this year just because of the circumstances that surround the Cowboys. And then third team, Drake London, I think, has had a really surprising year in Atlanta. Over 600 yards, six touchdowns. Just, you don't really notice it, I guess. He doesn't really have too many massive games, but he has been really consistent for them. Over 11 yards per reception, not too great, but you know, it was people are wondering like, will he have a breakout year now that he has a guy in Kirk Cousins? And it looks like the answer is yes. I think he will certainly have a career year in terms of yards and touchdowns. Zay Flowers as well. I think he has been doing very well this year. Certainly better than last year. 650 plus yards, over 700 total yards if you include the rushing yards. Three receiving touchdowns, 14 yards per reception. The Ravens have been looking for a number one receiver, and I think Zay Flowers, at least statistically, should be that guy. And I also decided to include Amon-Ra St. Brown. Six receiving touchdowns, almost 500 yards in the year. The yards per reception are not that high. I think obviously it could be a little bit better, but it was tough to find a real good ninth option at this spot. For tight ends, uh, first, well, in my opinion, I think George Kittle is still number one. Brock Bowers obviously is amazing as a rookie, leading all their tight ends and targets by a mile. Most catches, obviously, most yards, but I think George Kittle, his quality is a little bit more impressive. Obviously, having five more touchdowns than Brock Bowers plays a big difference. The PFF grade, George Kittle is a little bit better of a blocker as well. So I still think George Kittle has been the best tight end in football, but that's not to take away from what Brock Bowers has done as a rookie, beyond impressive so far. I mean, leading all tight ends in fucking yards as a rookie is ridiculous. And then Trey McBride in Arizona, he had a bit of a breakout year last season, but this year I think he's been even more impressive. I mean, 550 yards on the year to this point. I mean, he might lead like, well, I'm not going to say he might lead his team. I think he might be leading his team in yards. If you look at because Marvin Harrison as a rookie, he's been good, but not like that good. I don't think so. Keep an eye on Trey McBride, man. He's been having a monster season so far. Him and Kyler have a really good connection. Taking a look now at the offensive linemen. Left tackles here, Teron Armstead in Miami has been really, really good. The only left tackle with a grade over 90 in all these for the offensive linemen. I just use PFF grades, to be honest with you. I mean, you can look at like sacks allowed, penalties, all of that, but I think PFF grades is the way to go here. So Teron Armstead, I think, has been the best in the league so far. Zero sacks allowed. Trent Williams, obviously, we know how good he is. He's always in that conversation. But I mean, if you look at it compared to Teron Armstead, more penalties, more sacks allowed, more pressures allowed, lower grades across the board. I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer. And then Tristan Wirfs there, he does have the highest pass grade, I believe, of any left tackle, but the run grade's not very good. The most penalties, not, but a great pass protector. So there is a bit of a debate, I guess, if you want between Tristan Wirfs and Trent Williams, but I decided to put Trent Williams in that number two spot. And then left guards here. Joe Thuney on the Chiefs has been incredible. I mean, no penalties, no sacks allowed. I mean, has not missed a snap. I don't think, at least. Um, he is by far, well, not by far, but he is clearly the pick for the best left guard in football. Quentin Nelson, I mean, seven penalties on the year. That's going to hold you back in terms of your overall grades and stuff like that. But we know how good Quentin Nelson is. He is in that conversation year in and year out. And then you got guys like John Simpson on the Jets in his first year with the Jets, coming from the Ravens. Zero sacks allowed, some very good grades, and I think he has been a top three left guard in football this year. I'm sure that's better than what they were expecting when they made that signing. Then you got the centers here, Creed Humphrey on the Chiefs. By far, I mean, this is not even close, to be honest with you. 93.6 overall PFF grade. That might be the highest of like any position. If I'm like maybe Lamar's grade higher or something, but like Creed Humphrey's been incredible. Zero sacks allowed as well. Tyler Linderbaum on the Ravens. Um, Very good run blocker, zero sacks allowed. And I know Frank Ragnow was graded a little higher, but if you look at it, his pass grade is far less. He has two more sacks allowed, more pressures allowed, and he's played 160 less snaps than Linderbaum. So Linderbaum, I think, snaps is really important when I'm looking at, offensive linemen. You got to be available to, to be able to block and play very well. So I think Linderbaum two, Frank Ragnow at three for me. Center is pretty predictable here. Like the well-known guys are all at the top. Right guards, Chris Lindstrom. Yeah, he's kind of just solidified himself as one of, if not the best right guards in football. I believe he was the highest rated PFF player last year as well. He gives up a lot of pressures though, which is concerning. He's not a very good pass blocker, but as a guard, you probably want a better run blocker anyways, especially on a team like the Falcons. Kevin Zeitler from the Lions, he was a free agent signing that they made, also from the Ravens. We got two former Ravens here balling out at the guard positions. Kevin Zeitler's been a really good player for the Lions, only 2 sacks allowed, nearly 500 snaps played. Trey Smith on the Chiefs, he's been good. His grades, though, across the board, lower than Zeitler. More penalties, way more pressures. He has played more snaps, but I think I give Zeitler the nod at right guard over Trey Smith. And by the way, Chiefs left guard, center, and right guard, all in the top three. That if you want to know why the Chiefs are so good year in and year out, look at the offensive line. And then right tackle, Panay Sewell on Lions. He's been so good. By the way, Lions. Yeah, you got Lions, center, right guard, and right tackle. Now, Panay Sewell, probably the best right tackle in football. It's really not close. He is miles ahead of even the guys like Lane Johnson. We think of Lane Johnson up there. He's been really good. 0 sacks allowed, only 4 pressures allowed, but just the grades are so much lower than Panay Sewell, especially in the run blocking department. And Zach Tom for the Packers. Not necessarily the guy you might expect, but I mean, I'm sure he's having a career year here. Both grades over 80, pass block, run block, 600 snaps played, only 1 sack allowed. Zach Tom on the Packers having a really, really good year. So if you want my opinion on the best player at every position so far this season, Panay Sewell, Chris Lindstrom, Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, Teron Armstead, George Kittle, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson. That would be my first team all pro, if you will. That's gonna be for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. I'll be back maybe next week because I gotta do the Rob. I'm gonna do so 3 videos I think from now. I'll come back with the defensive all pro midseason. So keep your eyes out for that, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.